Welcome back, Karen and Colin here once again. And on this beautiful Sunday afternoon in early October, Colin, apparently you have something he wouldn't even disclose before we got on what he wanted to share with me. But Colin, what's going on? What was the story I need to know about?
Well, it's not really a story per se. It's
Okay.
just really more of a grievance about
Okay.
our country and the state of things. I like to look for things when I wake up in the morning and I make my coffee and I go out on the patio. I like to doom scroll and look for things to get me upset, to get me riled up, to get me angry first thing in the morning. And I saw something that really struck a chord with me today. It was on X, of course. That's where I go to do the majority of my doom scrolling. And let me just find the tweet here. It's actually two separate tweets. The first one is from our boy, Owen Schroyer here. And I don't know, I think that you're going to have a lot to say, or at least a lot of thoughts about this. Let me see if I can find it. If I can figure out, I'm an audio video professional here. So this is a tweet from Owen Schroyer. He retweeted this video. Let's watch the video first, actually. All right, let's watch this video first. Now, this is the world's largest high-speed train station in China, in Chongqing East Railway Station. I guess I'm pronouncing that correctly. So let's take a look at let's marvel at the beauty of this high-speed rail station in China. All right. Yeah, so there that is, and Owen Schroyer, we could have this in America, but your government has been bought and sold and serves other interests, not ours. Hope this helps. And that got when I saw that, it's like we live in the richest country in the world. Like, why can't we have futuristic cities with beautiful infrastructure? Why can't we have high speed rail? And it just got me very upset at it got me very upset that we don't have that, and it got me thinking, like, well, if you present that to a lot of normies, especially conservative normies, what they'll say to you is, oh, well, it's China, it's a communist dictatorship. And it's like, well, what has our liberal democracy gotten us here? They have that. They don't have to worry about walking home at night and getting stabbed in the neck by some thug who shouldn't be there. They don't have to worry about that in China. They don't have to worry about that in Russia for the most part. And it's because they don't have a liberal open democracy. They have kings, basically. Like President Xi, for all intents and purposes, he's the king of China, right? Like, what he says goes. If he says there's going to be a bridge built, the bridge is going to get built, like, very rapidly, and it's going to be magnificent. And that leads me to yet another tweet that got me even more riled up. Let me share this one with you here. This is uh this is the world's tallest bridge that China built, apparently. Let me share my screen once again. We're going to check this out. This is a retweet from Glenn Greenwald. Here, take a look at this. We're going to take a look at this.
Yeah, that's pretty magnificent right
Yeah,
there,
it's
actually.
glorious. It's absolutely glorious. It's absolutely glorious.
Hold
And you
on.
know what?
And financing other countries' militaries in their multiple wars. Okay, I just wanted to see what Glenn had
Yeah,
written. Is this all tweeted on the same day that they both tweeted this?
this was like yeah, I think this was the same day. Let's see here. This is October 5th. When did Owen Schroyer? October 5th. Yeah. Yeah, so they're both tweeting about everything that China has simultaneously. But as I was saying though, your conservative normies will stress like, oh, but it's a dictatorship with a surveillance state. Listen, we have a surveillance state right now, and we don't have any of that. Okay, it's like we're getting the surveillance state that China has, but we're not getting any of the perks that come with the totalitarian dictatorship. Do you know what I mean? Because the reason that bridge was built in China is because the king said, "Hey, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna build a magnificent, glorious bridge. It's gonna be a wonder. It's gonna be an architectural wonder, and we're gonna build it." And it got built. Here, like especially in Florida, Karen, there are roads and parts of highways here in Florida that have been like under construction now for like 10 years. Not nothing's getting done despite the weather being despite there being no snow and ice and the weather being beautiful 365. Nothing's getting done here. There's no, we're not allowed to have functioning bridges. We're not allowed to have pothole free road. It's just not allowed here. And anyway, seeing all of the magnificent wonders that other countries have kind of got me really upset that we're never going to have any of that here because people are, you know what the average citizen here is worried about. They're worried about they have got their Life of a Showgirl by Taylor Swift CD, or they've got it on Spotify or whatever, and they're tuning into the Eagles game. Have you noticed that, by the way, how like in the past couple years everybody's obsessed with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, I'm from, all my family's from Philadelphia, so I can't really like that's just like that's like my childhood. Like
Yeah, but in
I don't really care that much. I mean, like, yeah, if they get to the Super Bowl, I'm like, yeah, go Eagles. But I don't know. Well, you're down in Florida, so that's like you have a different like where I live and where my family's from, it makes sense that everybody's Eagles fans. But
But
is
why
it like
why not, instead of worrying about the sports ball team, how about why don't we make Philadelphia a great safe city where you can take your family and you can take the public transit and you can see the sights and people aren't doing fentanyl on Kensington Street and slumped over. Like why not focus on that? But everybody's just obsessed with the bread and circus, the sports ball, the Taylor Swift, and as a result, we are going to keep voting and electing corrupt public servants who are sending all of our money to foreign countries who shall remain nameless. We know who these countries are that we've been sending all the money to. We're not going to see it. And it's like nobody really care. Nobody, like, I can show this to other people in my life. I can show the videos that we just watched to certain people in my life, and they say, "Oh, wow, yeah, that's really cool." And that would be the only thought. They wouldn't go into this whole diatribe in their minds about, like, well, why can't we have that? Why the only magnificent architecture we can see in America, you have to go to a theme park, okay? You have to go to Universal Studios, to Epic Uni. If you want to see any type of impressive architecture, you have to go to theme parks in America. You're not going to find it in a city. You're not going to find it in Manhattan. You're not going to find it in Los Angeles, Chicago. All you're going to find all you're going to find is like people getting stabbed with kitchen utensils on the public transit by Neanderthals. That's what you're going to find here. And anyway, that's my little rant. Do you have any thoughts about how we're we're not going to have any magnificent bridges, roads, high-speed rail? Any thoughts at all about the state of things, Karen?
well, yeah, I do actually have some thoughts about this. So I went to Taiwan in 2019. And I was really surprised when you're in Taipei that next to some really updated modern buildings, like you'll go one block and there's like all these modern buildings, and then you go to the next block and there's like these buildings that were built in like the 1940s. They don't even have air conditioning. This is a tropical island for the most part. I don't know if it's exactly tropical, but it's a very warm climate in Taiwan compared to where we are, where I am in Pennsylvania, not Florida. So I was really kind of confused and interested. Like, why is part of Taiwan, it's clean, but like part of it was kind of like run down and some of it was very modern. And I actually found out why. It's because Taiwan versus China, like Shanghai, um in Shanghai in China, they will just totally they will kick people out. Nobody owns property in China. You rent your home for like you lease it for like 100 years. So nobody actually owns anything because they do not have private property rights. Okay. So what they will do is they will just kick people out for like blocks on end. And they'll just say, all right, like we're remodeling this 5 blocks. Like you need to leave. And they just tell them to leave. Whereas in Taiwan, my family member's father, his whole block was going to get renovated like in a year or two after we were visiting. But every single person that owned property, every building owner on that block had to agree to the rebuilding process because they honor private property rights in Taiwan versus Shanghai. And if you know a little bit about the history of Taiwan, basically all of the opposition to the Communist Chinese Party went and they fled to Taiwan. And that's actually Taiwan like preserved a lot of like the ancient Chinese history for a long time because a lot of that was erased by Mao. I will say that the Chinese have kind of brought a lot of that back because they've like developed this like national identity that they've, it's only I know that there's like certain parts of China that aren't exactly all from like that same group. There are like minority groups that don't necessarily reflect like this like one China initiative that they have. But that said, they don't have private property rights. So it's pretty much like, okay, you just get kicked out of the property. So, like, as much as it's like fun to see all that, I also think we have to recognize that, like, we have private property. Also, what you don't recognize is all of their technology comes from us. All of their medications like come from us because we have patents, because we have private property, because there's an incentive to innovate in America because of those private property rights. Whereas in China, they just come over here and they steal from us and then take all of that and take it back to China. I'm not saying there's no innovation going on. If you're familiar with DeepSeek, like the AI, the
Yes, I've
artificial
used it.
learning, yes, they're obviously advanced, and now there is like this new Cold War going on as far as technology and cloud capital between the two nations. So I'm not saying that there's no innovation going on in China. I'm not saying obviously we see certain things that are, but I would say at the same time too that they are essentially extracting a lot of the brain capacity of America because of our private property, because of our laws, and then just extracting them and taking them back and then using them in public means. So I don't know, it's interesting. Like I said, I think, and actually to your point, Biden, I don't know exactly if there was actual laws or just something he talked about, but he did want to, because he's the big Amtrak guy or whatever. He was he at some point I don't know if he was actually having conversations about this or he just quipped about it one time. I'm sorry, I'm ignorant to all the details, but he essentially talked about that, about how like we can't have a modern rail system. Like he was essentially like advocating for the use of, like eminent domain and seizure of private property for public use in order to create a high-speed rail system that envies what China has. So that's one of the reasons we don't have it, because one of these rail systems might go through your grandmother's 100, 200-year-old farm. And
Granny's got to leave. I'm sorry. Granny's got to pack her shit and relocate somewhere else. I guess my whole point at the end of the day is this. If that Ukrainian girl who got murdered in, where was it? North Carolina, right? She
yes,
was on the
yeah.
light rail
Mhm.
in North Carolina. If she was on the public transit in China, guess what would have happened? She would have read her book or whatever. She would have got off the train at her destination and she would have went home and she would have been alive because there's no tolerance for any sort of tomfoolery, shenanigans, thuggery at all in a country like China. She would have made it home alive. Whereas here in the grandest, the richest country, we don't have that guarantee of safety when we're using public transit here. We don't have the guarantee of safety when we're in Manhattan or Philadelphia. it's like you're taking your life into your own hands if you decide to visit Los Angeles or Chicago. Whereas
Well,
Beijing,
I was gonna say at least like you don't get arrested for certain tweets, but honestly, if you look at England, that's actually happening now. So I can't even
right,
really like for now, we actually have that freedom, but
right.
for how long, I'm not even sure. And to your point, like we all know, I guess we don't all know because I was talking to friends of mine yesterday that never had heard of Palantir. And I was saying to them, like,
Normies.
yeah, hey, like predictive policing, like we're probably going to have that soon.
Yeah,
So, I
we're gonna
mean,
have that minus the
my,
safe
my
futuristic cities. We're gonna have to worry about that, and we're gonna have to worry about thugs stabbing us in the neck while we're on the light rail.
Well, it's
So we don't
actually
even get the
funny too.
perks.
I was just reading a book called Techno Feudalism. It's by I can't pronounce his name. It's Giannis. It's a Greek name. He's like a Greek socialist economist or whatever. But I can't pronounce his last name. It's like Yaris Kafka. I don't know. I'm really apologize to him that I cannot pronounce his name, but I'm a big fan of his book. I'm not a socialist. Although sometimes we
We're
pretend we're
we're
conservative
conservative
socialists.
socialists. That's what we prefer to.
That's not true. I'm not a socialist, but I was reading his book, Techno Feudalism, brings up a lot of interesting points. He was just talking about how China, Xi Jinping actually was like advocating for higher wages for the Chinese workers. And he wasn't sure if it was just like a political move or if it was like genuinely like he wanted to. I think that in China, they try to like keep the masses like a little bit satisfied. Like they actually do. I think in America, it's like we have too much information. I actually am going to disagree with your point about bread and circus. I think in
Hmm,
China, they are more amused by bread and circus. I'm sorry, the light is like coming through. I don't know, whatever.
it's fine.
They are more amused by bread and circus. Like they don't even have like Jimmy Kimmel, I know he was like briefly removed from the air, but it's like they have nothing even close to that. Like they have no real comedy, real converse. Everything's like slapstick. I Love Lucy comedy. Like there's
The
no
greatest sitcom of all time, by the way,
yeah.
bar none. Just
But
saying.
like they just what I'm saying is like they are all bred in circus in China. Like
Hmm.
there is like no conversation. It's all just like I'm not saying completely, but like I had a brother who was basically an illegal immigrant. I won't say immigrant. He was illegally had an illegal visa in China for a little while. So there is a lot of things that can happen in China. Like I would say that what we know about China is not all completely true. And my brother knew
Hmm.
like a lot of people that were like Russians that would say that they were like American, but they were really Russian and they had like these visas. And there's a lot of strange things that actually do happen in China. But my brother lived there for a little less than a year. But what I was gonna say is he was really surprised. Like he really loved the Chinese people, but he's like, you can't have like real conversations with them. Like they're
Right.
very base, elementary, because it's like that's the way they, and obviously I'm sure there's plenty of Chinese people that are very intelligent and do have a lot of critical reasoning. It's not, this is his experience. I'm not saying this of all Chinese people, obviously. And I think a lot of it, to be honest with you, I wonder how many of those Chinese people, how much that's going to, I don't know. It's you have a lot of Chinese people that come here though too. To your point about bread and circus, I think the Chinese, they've tried to essentially allowing them to buy things, have companies move in, give them chocolates and designer bags and et cetera, et cetera. It was just a means of control. It was like, okay, hey, focus on this consumerism and you won't worry about why Xi Jinping is like taking out his adversaries in the party. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah,
don't
right.
worry about what the party's doing. Look, you can buy Prada now. Like, look, we're not going to make you all go to a farm and commit atrocities and kill you all and give you struggle sessions. Like,
You can go to Shanghai Disney.
yeah.
They've
And
got a
there's
Universal
actually,
there.
yeah, yeah. So I think there's actually more bread and circus
It's an
in
interesting
China.
point. I never thought of it that way, but I do want to say you said a phrase earlier that I think kind of ties everything together of what they do have that we don't, and that's a national identity. That's something that this country does not have at this point of time in time, and I think that is a big contributing factor to the state of things, the lack of a national identity, the lack of anything that really ties us together as a people, which back in the day, sorry, it used to be ethnicity, it used to be religion. We don't have either of
I'm
those
going to
things
actually push
anymore.
back against that too, because
Okay,
The original Dutch and the English hated the Irish, they hated the Lithuanians, they hated the Germans, they hated the Italians. Like when they came here, there was a big outcry, and
true.
immigration was they considered so out of control, they instituted a quota system on immigration.
But they
So
were all European.
they were all your, well, I would say that it was actually their faith that united them, even though there was different. You're from the coal region, there was the Irish Catholic Church and there was the Italian Catholic Church. And when they came
Hmm.
here, they
True.
worshiped, built their churches, and they went to church based on their language and their culture. But I think at the end of the day, their moral code and their beliefs kind of aligned. And I think sometimes, like, I think we saw this in this last election. A lot of I don't want to say people that come from farm stock Iowa were more morally aligned, more culturally aligned, more traditionally aligned with Mexican immigrants than they were with the people in San Francisco. And they're Europeans. So
Hmm.
I don't necessarily agree that there's no I think that a lot of what America was was built off of Christianity, and I think that there is a common cultural um consensus when your belief systems flow from that faith, whereas when they
True.
don't, I mean, I would say most Trump voters that are white, they could come from they could come from the Mayflower on like on all these different issues. They're going to agree with a Mexican immigrant more than they're going to agree with a blue-haired barista in Brooklyn. Like that
That's
also
true.
came from the
That's
Mayflower.
unavoidable.
That is not like, so I don't necessarily, but what I will say, cultural or identity issues have been co-opted to create division. I will agree with that. I think that there is a lot of consent. There are a lot of what we can agree on. There's a lot of agreement. I mean, you ever talk to like a Cuban immigrant? Like they hate socialism. They hate all these different things. They're super traditionalists. They're like they can't stand any of this nonsense. Um, I mean, my uncle is Costa Rican. He's a Costa Rican immigrant. He was an illegal immigrant. He got married, has a green card. He's becoming a citizen after all these years. I asked him what he thought about the ICE deportations. He was like, I think it's great. So I'm saying, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, whereas like I have a white now liberal family member who every day is on Facebook with like severe TDS and is like screaming about the deportation. So I'm saying, like, he's an immigrant that was literally here illegal from Costa Rica, and he agrees more with the white people than some of these white people than even, do you get what I'm saying? So I think
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we don't recognize that. We don't see that. But yeah, but I do think that racial, the cultural identities, the different faiths, they are co-opted to cause division. So
I guess what I meant was being a
lately, so
Eurocentric country was part of our national identity at one point, even though all the various ethnicities didn't like each other in some
they
cases.
were still European.
It was always a Eurocentric country, and I think that was that was part of the glue that held this country together. And I guess my overarching thought with this whole video to kind of wrap things up, I am in no way advocating for some sort of communist totalitarian dictatorship. I want to make that
That's
clear.
what it sounds like.
It might come across that way to some people. You know, I'm showing all these magnificent videos of, hey, look at what China had. I guess what I'm saying is that with our current system, the way things are, you are not going to get it should be like evident. It should be abundantly clear that with whatever this current system is now, you're not going to get safe, clean cities. You're not going to get any sort of amazing architectural feats. You're not going to get innovation. You're just not going to get that with whatever this current system is. It's just some food for thought. That's all
Yes, what
I'm
we are
saying.
going to get are broken roads, and you are going to get the freedom to gorge yourself out with like, fire hot Cheetos to the point where you're in a diabetic coma and hopefully qualify for Medicaid. Like that's pretty much.
And listen
And
to Taylor
actually,
Swift.
I will say I object to what Owen Schroyer and what Glenn Greenwald are saying. Like the amount of money we spend on like military and foreign aid versus how much money we're spending on Social Security
The
and
entitlements.
Medicare and the entitlement and benefit programs, like it's vastly different. Like
So you're
people
saying cut
people
all the
don't
entitlements. No more. The gravy train's pulling into the station. We need high
I
speed rail.
I pretty much agree. I think that like right now it's like we're almost like rats in a cage that are so used to the drip of sugar water coming down that I don't think it's even possible to stop that drip of water. But it's probably bad that the government got involved with feeding people healthcare, college education. It's like pretty much anything that the government gets involved with, like the prices just go through the roof and it becomes unaffordable for people so that we all just become dependent on the government. And then I mean, even our top corporations have been like bailed out. Our banks have been bailed out. It's like everything's just actually being subsidized by the government. Like the government's paying for everything. We don't live in like I love when people like rail against late stage capitalism. It's like we are not living in capitalism, people. Like this is so to your point, if we're not living in capitalism, if we're basically like you said, we're not even we're electing officials, and they all seem to be the same, and they all hang out on Epstein's island. Like, yeah, I guess at this point, like, if Donald Trump can just wave a wand and say, "Let's build the high speed rail," like we might as well just give him that power because we
Can we?
pretty
You
much
know?
have zero power. Like, literally, the only freedom you have in this country is to go get fentanyl and inject it into your body or take it by a pill and end your life. Like that's
Yeah,
pretty
you can
much
do it
like
in
the
Kensington Street in
yeah, like
Philadelphia, the city of
yeah,
brotherly love.
like that's like pretty much like one of the only and it's like you can tweet, like you can put
Yeah,
stuff on X, like you can share
yeah.
memes and you won't be arrested. So it's like you can take fentanyl and you can like because you can pretty much get it anywhere and you can
You
post
can go get some
tweets.
kratom at the gas station.
Get some kratom at the gas station.
You can vape.
I don't, I get a vape. Yeah. And if you haven't seen these like alcoholic slushies that are everywhere, it's like you can pretty much like destroy your liver and all the rest of your internal organs on a daily basis at the low price of like 2.99 and then share memes and watch reels all day. So it's like,
Right.
don't you love freedom? Isn't this great? Um,
And all I'm saying is, I want to be able to go to a magnificent, futuristic train station like the one I showed you in
have
that
you been to the
video
Oculus?
and take the high speed rail to Miami. And when you get to Miami, there are police everywhere. There is no crime whatsoever. You can go, you can walk freely at night. That's all I want for this country. But I
All
guess
right.
that's asking a bit too
Okay.
much at this stage in the game. So that was really my whole point with showing you those videos. I just wish we could have nice things
Nice
too,
things.
like the communist dictatorship of China. That's all I'm really saying. All right. So there
I
you go.
understand. I understand. Touche. Touche.